How do thousands sleep on sidewalks while 1,900 subsidized apartments sit empty? Answer: a brutal activation breakdown. 7.4% vacancy in Portland's affordable stock. That's the epicenter of the collapse. We're counting down 10 Oregon places that reveal the pattern. You'll see how slow approvals, tangled waitlists, and shrinking price gaps with market units create a dead end. Watch as we dismantle the myth that just build more is this. The problem isn't a doorknob, it's the system that never turns it. Before we continue, hit subscribe so you never miss the latest updates. Number 1, Stauffer. You've never heard of Stauffer. Good. That silence is the lesson. It's a grid drawn in hope, then left to fade. Empty parcels, paper streets, recorded but never realized. A town that exists on deeds and survey lines, not on doorbells or leases. That's what happens when intent substitutes for activation. Nothing moves. Need grows louder. The map stays quiet. Stauffer is Oregon's ghost of potential. The plats are there. The lots are there. The rules were there. But nobody turned potential into occupancy. That's the blueprint. A place fully diagrammed, spiritually vacant. And in 2025, the housing system is replaying that script in the middle of a crisis. The result is a brutal reckoning. Now hold that stillness next to Portland's 1,900 affordable units sitting empty. Inventory exists. Doors swing. Lights work. But the system stalls at the exact moment people need speed. The handoff fails. The buildings are ready. The process is not. The unit is built. The household waits. That's how a city with stock starts behaving like a ghost community. Activation is the missing engine. In housing, activation means the full chain: marketing, screening, verification, inspection, contract, move in, executed fast, clean, and predictable. When any link drags, the whole chain breaks. Tenants hover in limbo. Providers bleed cash. Public dollars idle. The vacancy rate flares. And here's the research-backed punchline. A 7.4% vacancy in affordable stock versus a 5% equilibrium target. That gap is not noise, it's waste you can count in missed rent, longer shelter stays, and eroding public trust. This is not a soft landing. It's a full-blown disaster for households who needed keys yesterday. Stauffer is the analogy you can't avoid. We wired the house and never flipped the breaker. The circuits are in. The drywall is up. You'd still sit in the dark. That's Portland's affordable portfolio right now. Operational on paper, inert in reality. Why? Administrative friction, slow lease-ups because files ping-pong between agencies, waitlists that time out or misprioritize, income verifications that drag for weeks, then expire and restart, inspections scheduled, rescheduled, and sequenced across departments that don't share calendars. Each delay compounds. The queue clogs. The unit stays dark. The family gives up. If a ghost town like Stauffer can't repopulate with zero bureaucracy, what does it say when a city with staff, budgets, and software can't fill funded units? It says the machinery is misaligned. It says process outruns purpose. It says vacancy has become policy by default. So Stauffer becomes the metaphor, and Portland wears the warning label. Without activation, even financed, finished housing turns into a dead map. The streets are drawn, the lots are marked, but no one arrives. The silence spreads to louder markets, where the same stall now costs more, slower, and leaves families circling the block at midnight. Number 2, Susanville. Susanville was built to harvest the ground until it quit giving. The shaft dried up, the people left, and the infrastructure sat there. Roads, frames, remnants, useless without flow. That is the boom-bust manual. Build fast on a single premise, then watch it collapse when the premise fails. The lesson is blunt. Infrastructure without occupants is a financial nightmare. Now apply that playbook to subsidized housing. Money flows. Buildings stand. Keys don't move. The result is the same, emptiness, only this time funded by public dollars. Units sit dark while need surges outside the lobby. The vein didn't dry up. The handoff did. You've got stock and applicants, but the bridge between them buckles on contact. The friction points are not theoretical. The rent gap with market units has shrunk. Data shows the spread fell to a decade. Low late 2025, about $452. When the discount narrows, applicants compare not only price but speed, paperwork, and certainty. Subsidized programs pile on forms, verifications, and reviews. Market buildings counter with a clean application, quick approvals, and perks that matter when you're living week to week. Complex applications drive attrition. Restarted verifications push people out of eligibility windows. And after federal cuts, staffing thins where throughput matters most. The housing authority's layoffs translate into fewer hands on waitlists, fewer processors to clear files, fewer inspectors to greenlight move-ins. Each missing staffer becomes a longer vacancy window. And every delay is rent you never collect and a bed that never opens. Reports from industry sources point to the same culprits. administrative delays, and rising rents inside the subsidized portfolio. That's the double hit. The process slows exactly as the value proposition weakens. Meanwhile, market rate buildings close the pricing distance and market amenities you can't match. Fitness rooms, package lockers, flexible lease terms, and a simple, fast path to keys. This is where the stakes spike. Units sit idle while homelessness rises year over year. That's not a paperwork glitch. It's a moral and fiscal failure. Public assets are underperforming, while shelters overflow and budgets hemorrhage. You pay twice, once to build the unit, again to carry it empty. And it gets worse. When the market competes on speed and amenities, subsidized units lose on both fronts. The incentive tilts away from the very people the program is supposed to serve. The result is avoidable vacancy. Dark doors, paid for, unoccupied. Susanville is the warning label. When incentives and capacity diverge, systems crumble. The town lost its vein. Today's housing loses its throughput. That's the brutal reckoning. Activation is the resource, now. Another abandoned name, same modern signal. Activation is not optional. Number 3, Auburn. Auburn promised permanence. It delivered absence. A town that ran on certainty for a season and then lost its pulse. Streets held, structures lingered, people didn't. The promise outlived the audience, and the result was a tidy grid with no lives attached. That's the echo you can't ignore. Auburn once functioned as a node, supplies in or out, routine set. Then momentum bled away. What stayed behind wasn't ruin, it was stillness. Built forms without occupants. A system that had all the parts except the one that matters. People moving in on time with certainty. That's the blueprint of a promise that didn't get activated. Now the paradox. Subsidized units exist. Keys are cut, but eligible tenants peel off to market buildings because speed wins. They want one application, one answer, and a move-in date, and they get it. Meanwhile, subsidized pipelines grind through steps that make sense on paper and fail in practice. The result is vacancy that looks engineered. The choke starts with legacy priorities, lists that reward longevity in the queue over urgency on the street. Add documentation cycles that expire as pay stubs age out mid-review. Layer on verifications that restart after a single change in hours worked. Each step is defensible, and together they suffocate throughput. Time kills occupancy. Research is blunt about this dynamic. Application friction suppresses take-up even when the price is better. When the path is convoluted, people choose certainty over savings. That's rational behavior, not impatience. It's survival math. And the pricing gap is closing. When market rents decelerate or throw concessions, the spread narrows to within striking distance. Free first month, waived deposits, flexible terms. The discount that once offset the hassle disappears. Tenants stop paying with their time. Walk through the vivid split screen. On one side, an amenity-rich market building with same-day approval, digital lease signing, and a key locker waiting. On the other, a subsidized unit with a 5-part application, third-party verifications, a scheduled inspection, and a follow-up weeks later. Demand follows the shortest line to a door that opens. So what happens when subsidized operating costs rise? Compliance stacks higher and service quality lags. Units sit. Providers eat vacancy loss. The public carries empty inventory in a housing emergency. That's a brutal reckoning. Auburn stands as the emblem. Promises preserved in structure, not in occupancy. If the system won't meet people where they are, fast, simple, predictable, it will sit empty, no matter how many ribbon cuttings you hold. Activation is not a slogan. It's the difference between doors that welcome and rooms that echo. The deeper the rules, the emptier the rooms. Number 4. Cornucopia, abundance with no access. Cornucopia was branded as endless plenty. It ended in absence. That's the contradiction playing out now. We fund abundance, then watch it sit dark. The name promised surplus, the system delivered scarcity. That is the brutal reckoning. Portland's pipeline produced inventory, but activation lag has converted supply into idle capital. Units are built, doors are ready, yet they are sitting empty month after month in the epicenter of the collapse. The reason is not mysterious, it is mechanical, and it is fixable. Start with the mismatch. Unit sizes don't meet the shape of demand. Too many studios when families need bedrooms. Too many 3 bedrooms when single adults hold the queue. Then the income targeting gaps kick in. Deeply subsidized slots for one set of earners, shallow subsidies for another, and a dead zone in between where thousands land. Waitlist rules pile on, prioritizing process over occupancy. Older applications leap ahead of urgent cases. Re-verifications restart the clock. Eligibility windows close mid-review. Each rule sounds prudent. Together, they suffocate throughput. The data shows the cost of that suffocation. Affordable inventory sits at 7.4% vacancy against a healthy target near 5%. That spread is not academic. It's a financial chokehold in a housing emergency. Every point above equilibrium turns public investment into non-performing stock. That is waste measured in rent not collected and people not housed. Here's the constraint providers can't escape: operating dollars. Without operating subsidies, they can't restructure debt service or flex rents to meet where households actually are. Mortgage payments, insurance, and maintenance stack up while units wait for the perfect match. Leaders admit the bind. We can't just drop the rents. As one nonprofit chief put it, leasing slows because the math doesn't pencil. Vacancy loss rises. Cash flow erodes. Buildings drift toward defensiveness instead of speed. The opportunity cost is staggering. A vacant affordable unit means someone else is in a shelter cot, a motel room, or a tent, at higher public expense and higher human toll. You pay to build the apartment. Then you pay again to manage the fallout of it sitting empty. That is a full-blown disaster. Can operating subsidies flip the switch faster than new construction? Yes. New builds take years. Activation funding moves now. Bridge operating grants to buy down rents, stabilize staffing, and cut approval times. The analogy is simple. You don't rebuild the engine while the car stalls in traffic. You give it fuel and clear the lane. Cornucopia proves the point. Abundance without access is worthless. Activation funding is the missing gear that turns inventory into homes. Next comes a damn town parable where capacity exists, but nothing flows. Number 5, 3 links. 3 links ran on schedules, timestamps, load charts. It served a utility with unforgiving precision. When the switch flipped, power moved. When it didn't, everything stalled. That's the contrast you need to see, because today's housing intake is the opposite. Slack, fragmented, and catastrophically underwater. The setup is simple. 3 links was engineered around a system that demanded reliability. Crews knew the sequence. Maintenance hit deadlines. Outcomes matched the plan. But in 2025, intake for subsidized housing is the anti-system. Files drift, inspections slip, and move-ins miss their window. The grid is drawn, but nothing flows. Start with the tension points. Inspections drag across calendars that don't sync. Voucher matches fail when the unit and applicant timelines don't align. Unit readiness lags while vendors wait on approvals and providers wait on vendors. Precision infrastructure meets imprecise intake, and the result is vacancy that looks permanent. Map the bottleneck. Turnover should take days. Notice, clean, inspect, lease, move. Instead, background checks stack on top of third-party income verifications, which stack on program approvals, which wait on final inspections. One missed email cascades into a week. One expired pay stub restarts the file. The queue hardens. The door stays shut. Now the research-backed hit. Permit issuance is plunging to the lowest level since 2009. Per Eco Northwest, completions peaked in 2024, and in 2025, deliveries start falling as starts collapse. Up for Growth confirms this pattern. Completions outpacing new starts means the pipeline is fragile. The future pipe is narrowing right now. That's a brutal reckoning. Here's the paradox. Even as future supply shrinks, current subsidized units sit empty because intake can't execute. Fewer apartments coming, more time wasted on the ones already built. That is a full-blown disaster, and you pay for it in human terms and in cash burn. Operationally, vacancy loss eats projects alive. Every dark unit erodes cash flow. Insurance, debt service, and maintenance don't wait. Providers push rents to stabilize budgets. Higher rents reduce eligibility. Eligibility churn slows lease-ups. The loop tightens. The portfolio bleeds. And it gets worse. As the pipeline thins in 2025, this inefficiency compounds into crisis math. Less new inventory to relieve pressure. More administrative drag on the stock you have. You're building a bottleneck into a funnel that's already narrowing. The result is predictable. Longer vacancy windows, rising carrying costs, and families stranded while keys sit on hooks. 3 links gives you the metaphor you can't ignore. Capacity without flow is worthless. Intake reform isn't paperwork cleanup. It's emergency infrastructure, align inspections, pre-clear documents, lock timelines to days, not months. Turn the switch or keep paying for darkness. From utilities to gold, an empty town that mirrors empty ledgers. Number 6, golden. Golden promised riches. Waiting extracted them. The town is a relic of lost time, and today the same currency gets burned in housing. Every week in limbo turns an open door into dead inventory. In golden, delay froze growth. In subsidized housing, delay kills occupancy. The clock isn't neutral, it's a drain. Here's the tension. Tenants run a months-long verification gauntlet, while market landlords move in days and throw in specials. First month free. Fees waived. Keys by Friday. That asymmetry decides outcomes. When you live paycheck to paycheck, speed is survival. The slow path loses, even if the rent is lower on paper. That's the brutal reckoning. The data backs the shift. CoStar tracked the rent gap collapsing to its lowest point in late 2025, with some studios at 60% AEMI pricing on par with market units. When spreads compress to roughly within 10%, time beats price. Applicants stop paying with their weeks. They take the faster door and leave subsidized stock sitting empty. Eligibility churn multiplies the damage. As subsidized rents climb inside regulated buildings, some applicants age out of the band or opt out entirely. A small raise, a new shift, a change in household size. The file no longer fits the program box. Now the unit goes back on the board while the applicant disappears to a faster option. That is preventable vacancy repeated. And the churn isn't just lost demand, it's cost. Providers remarket the unit, rerun third-party verifications, re-queue inspections, and restart the entire sequence. Staff hours burn. Calendars slip, the vacancy window widens. It's operational bleed that turns public investment into idle stock. Think of every rerun like a hard reset on a frozen computer. You wait, you watch the spinner, you get no progress. Then you rebuild the session from scratch. Time-consuming, zero gain. Meanwhile, the market building across the street leases 3 units with one-click screening. The result is predictable. How many cycles before providers stop trying to underwrite the impossible? Rising operating costs on one side, a thinner rent advantage on the other, compliance stacked in the middle. You cannot out-process a shrinking spread and a faster competitor. You will lose the tenant and carry the vacancy. That's the full-blown disaster. Golden teaches a cruel rule. Delays devalue subsidies. Speed is the subsidy now. If you can't deliver a clean yes in days, you're not competitive, even at controlled rents. The rent discount doesn't matter if the door never opens. From waiting to wandering. Friend is next, a place that vanished, like tenants drifting through a system that can't hold them. Number 7, Friend. Friend had a name. Today's process has none. The place couldn't hold people. The system now can't hold applicants. Files drift. Keys sit. Families move in circles while units stay dark. That is the brutal reckoning. The setup is simple and damning. A pipeline that should deliver stability instead leaks at every joint. Voucher letters go out, but placements lag. Inspections stack up in a backlog. Landlords walk away. The machine that should move with urgency stalls, and the result is vacancy that hardens into policy. But in 2025, complexity rises exactly as capacity shrinks. More compliance, fewer hands. The reason? Federal cuts triggered layoffs at Home Forward, Oregon Live reports, and that blow lands where speed matters most. Fewer staff to manage waitlists, fewer processors to clear verifications, fewer inspectors to certify units. Every missing person becomes another week of rent that no one collects and another bed that no one sleeps in. Operational strain is everywhere. Vouchers get issued, then die on the vine as the placement clock runs out. Inspection calendars slip. Rechecks push move-ins back. Applicants lose patience and peel off. Meanwhile, landlord participation erodes. Slow payment processing, repetitive paperwork, and a competitive market make the choice easy. Take a conventional tenant now, or wait months for reimbursement. The result is fewer participating units and a thinner pipeline for the households that need it most. Landlord calculus is not mysterious. They weigh slower payments against rising costs, higher admin burden against tight vacancy, and the answer is exit. When the market can fill a unit in days at comparable rent, a voucher looks like a risk. The program loses inventory. Voucher holders lose options. The portfolio sinks deeper, catastrophically underwater. The human cost is severe. Families cycle from shelter to motel to car, while keys hang unclaimed. Every delay means another school move, another missed shift, another week of instability that compounds into crisis. The housing exists, but access doesn't. That gap becomes a financial nightmare for providers and a survival test for tenants. Here's the analogy you can't ignore. A bridge with no on-ramps. The span is built, but there's no way to enter, so traffic snarls and the investment sits idle. The result is predictable. Nothing moves. Activation demands both sides. Tenant readiness must meet landlord confidence. Fast. Pre-cleared documents, reliable inspections, guaranteed payment timelines. Without those allies, vacancy calcifies. Friend becomes the mirror. Without staff, landlords, and fast systems, the stock stays dark and the crisis deepens. We move to a city that proves policy can shrink to near zero. Greenhorn. Number 8. Greenhorn. Greenhorn shows the endpoint. When a city becomes a statistic, policy failure stops being abstract and starts being geographic. Population near zero. Services minimal. A dot on a map that warns you what happens when presence loses to process. That's the brutal reckoning. Set the frame. Greenhorn is an extreme edge case. Near empty by definition. The streets exist. The jurisdiction exists. The residents barely do. You're looking at a place where governance outlived the governed. It's not a mystery. It's what happens when a place can't anchor daily life. The map remains. The people don't. Now the tension. Portland isn't Greenhorn, but subsidized inventory acts like it. Present but uninhabited. Doors exist. Keys exist. Tenants don't arrive. Units sit dark long enough to feel abandoned, even while the need outside intensifies. That's not scarcity, that's malfunction. The misalignment runs through location. Units land where transit is thin, far from job clusters, healthcare, and childcare. You ask a worker to trade a shorter rent bill for a longer commute and higher time cost. They decline. Beds stay empty. The same misfire appears in bedroom counts. Too many studios where families queue. Too many large units where singles dominate. The result is simple. Inventory that exists but doesn't match the people who need it. Experts are clear on this dynamic. Poorly matched inventory stays dark, even in high-need markets. When geography and unit mix contradict demand, vacancy rates don't heal with time. They calcify. The intake pipeline can hustle, but if the address and the layout miss the mark, you get attrition, not absorption. That's a full-blown disaster. Economically, empty affordable units poison the well for future funding. Voters and legislators ask the obvious question: why build more if these sit empty? The optics are catastrophic. Idle doors become ammunition for budget cuts, delays, and diversions. Confidence fades. The pipeline slows. Projects die on the drafting table. And it gets worse. Projects die on the drafting table. And it gets worse. That skepticism feeds a self-fulfilling collapse. Underproduction accelerates as political support erodes, while the remaining inventory underperforms due to the same misalignment. You don't just stall the system, you reverse it. The epicenter of the collapse shifts from construction costs to credibility. The fix isn't more units, it's smarter activation. Place the stock where demand lives. Align bedroom counts to the queue. Tie leases to transit. Cut approval times to days. Make the door easier to reach and faster to open. Geography plus speed, that's the operating system. Greenhorn is the caution. When policy ignores where people live and how they move, the map empties. The inventory becomes a statistic. The city becomes a warning label. Now to Waldo, where the question isn't supply, it's where are the people. Number 9. Waldo. Waldo's joke is visibility. The system's joke is accessibility. Units are technically there, yet for the people who need them, they keep vanishing the moment you reach for the keys. That's not a glitch. That's a design failure that turns inventory into a mirage. Start with the setup. Waldo is the disappearing act in real time. Apartments funded, listed, even marketed, but not absorbed into actual lives. Providers post availability. Applicants show interest. Then the file enters a maze. Weeks pass. The unit goes back to available. On paper, the portfolio looks active. On the ground, it is inert. Now the tension. Operating costs surge. Insurance, utilities, maintenance, compliance, up across the board. Providers without operating subsidies raise regulated rents to keep the lights on. Tenants do the math and see minimal savings versus market. They walk, the door stays shut. Vacancy becomes a line item, not a temporary problem. Here's the data angle that tilts the field. Market rate buildings slow rent growth and stack concessions. Free weeks. Waived fees. Flexible start dates. Research flags that 42% of market properties now price within 10% of affordable comps, with amenities and speed to match. When the spread compresses, price stops being decisive. Worse, speed and certainty win. The process angle is worse. Layered eligibility rules make it to finding Waldo a daily exercise. So you submit pay stubs, then a new set after they expire. You wait for third-party verification that stalls on a fax line. You complete the form, then another, then an addendum for a minor change in hours. Every step feels rational in isolation. Together they suffocate throughput. Human reality follows. Each extra form triggers dropout risk. Each re-verification pushes people back to couches, shelters, or motels. They're not choosing convenience. They're choosing survival. You wouldn't wait months with nowhere to sleep when the market next door offers keys this week. Neither do they. That's why vacancy hardens. Zoom out to the macro context. Starts are slowing into 2025. The pipeline narrows. This is the stock you have. It must be used. You will not build your way out fast enough to outrun administrative paralysis and operating shortfalls. If activation fails, every new unit risks the same invisible fate. So what breaks the paralysis? Pricing, process, or both? The answer is both. Buy down costs with operating support to widen the spread. Strip the application to essentials and pre-verify documents so approvals land in days. Otherwise, the system keeps losing on time, then on price, then on trust. Waldo exposes a brutal truth. Affordability without access is invisible housing. The inventory exists, the lives do not. Granite closes the loop next. Sturdy name, brittle system, and the bill that comes due when delay becomes policy. Number 10, Granite. Granite sounds unbreakable. But in 2025, the housing system fractures on contact. The metaphor fits. Hard walls, hollow rooms. Programs look permanent. Contracts, bonds, compliance. But under administrative load, they crumble. You see the facade. You pay for the structure. You don't get occupancy. That's the brutal reckoning. Granite is permanence turned fragile. Affordable housing looks engineered to endure. Covenants, oversight, multi-year underwriting. However, the moment an applicant enters, the weight of forms, audits, and misaligned incentives pulls the whole thing apart. The shell stands. The purpose collapses. That is a full-blown disaster. Here's the epicenter of the collapse. Nearly 1,900 publicly subsidized apartments in Portland are sitting empty. That's a 7.4% vacancy rate out of 25,409 units, while shelters overflow. The result is a financial nightmare and a human one. Doors exist. People need them. The system refuses to connect the two. Stack the causes. The rent gap with market units has narrowed, especially at 60% AMI studios. Approvals move slower, with files cycling through re-verifications and inspections that don't sync. Staffing is chopped after cuts, so fewer hands push files to lease. Unit mix misses demand. Landlord participation weakens because payments lag and requirements pile up. Each factor hurts. Together, they suffocate throughput. The data is the indictment. Oregon Live cites a 7.4% vacancy versus a 5% equilibrium target. That delta equals millions in idle public investment and lost rent. It is waste, you can count. And it gets worse when providers raise regulated rents to cover insurance, debt service, and maintenance. The price advantage shrinks. Tenants walk. So you pull the policy lever that matters, activation. Fast-track inspections across agencies so timelines collapse into days. Build pre-verified applicant pools to deliver on-the-spot eligibility. Fund operating subsidies to buy down rents and restructure debt loads that lock buildings into slow lease-ups. You don't wait for new construction to save you. You use what you already paid for. Then you add the operational lever. One-stop applications that every property can accept. Shared documentation so pay stubs and IDs don't expire mid-file. A 48-hour unit match commitment that binds both sides. When a unit opens, a verified applicant gets an answer within 2 days. You replace drift with deadlines. You replace bottlenecks with flow. If activation is the lever, will leaders pull it now? The window is short. Starts are slowing. Budgets are tight. Delay cements vacancy into policy. Action flips dark inventory into homes. The choice is binary. Granite seals the thesis. In 2025, the crisis isn't the doorknob. It's the system that never turns it. Hard assets without fast intake equal hollow rooms and rising homelessness. Activate or accept vacancy as policy. That's the directive, and the bill for waiting is already due. That's it for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more of the latest updates.